All right, good morning, everybody. To launch off this conference on Lawfare, it is my great pleasure to introduce you, if you haven't met him before, to the dean of this wonderful school that's hosting the conference. We are very fortunate here at Case to have a dean who is a Rhodes Scholar. He's probably the only dean in the world who played basketball with Bill Bradley on a championship team out in Oxford, right? And he's been doing wonderful things here at the school. He's been very supportive and very involved in our international law program. And so it is quite appropriate that he welcome you today. Bob Rawson.
Thank you, Michael. I'm delighted in my role to welcome everybody here. It's wonderful to have all of you joining us for what will be an extraordinary day, and I especially want to welcome our distinguished panel of speakers. I envy all who will attend and listen to the perspectives of the folks we have been able to assemble. A couple of comments on Michael's generous introduction. The first is that I peaked very early in life, and I've been rapidly sliding downhill and hoping that I'll get to the end of whatever I'm supposed to do before I really hit bottom. The basketball piece is, as you can tell by looking at me, I'm small, but I'm also slow. So the fact that I was playing with Bill Bradley gave us some opportunity to win a game or two, but I want to just put all that in perspective for all of you. Over the next several hours, you will all learn about, quote, lawfare, which has been defined as using law and legal institutions in place of military tactics, which sounds to the layperson like a logical way to proceed. Then you think about the thought-provoking tagline for the conference as listed at the top of the brochure, quote, "Are America's enemies using law against us as a weapon of war," end of quote. Today, our expert panelists will explore the history and debate around the meaning of the term lawfare. They will look at lawfare in three different contexts. First, with respect to international war crime trials. Second, with respect to the Israeli-Palestine situation. And finally, with respect to America's struggle against terrorism. And they will ultimately consider how America and its allies should best respond to lawfare. This is exactly the kind of conference which we in our Frederick K. Cox International Law Center are delighted to host. Last year we hosted a conference titled After Guantanamo, which examined what to do with Guantanamo detainees and the officials accused of mistreating them. We've also held several important expert meetings, like the one that will take place tomorrow. For example, in 2008, we had a meeting about the International Criminal Court and the crime of aggression, which helped develop the compromise proposal that was adopted by 111 countries in Kampala this summer. This is all part of an ambitious international law program here, which has attained national and international recognition over the years. I encourage you to take a look at the Case Global brochure, which you'll find on the registration table, to learn about other ongoing international activities and projects. We could not do all this, of course, without resource support, to state the obvious, but that's what deans are supposed to do, so I've just done that. Our international law program is very fortunate to have been endowed by generous contributions from the Gund Foundation and the Bruce Klatsky Foundation, and we're especially grateful today to the Wolf Family Foundation, whose generous grants have made possible this conference and ones like it over the past 8 years. We also thank the organizations who are co-sponsoring this event: the American Society of International Law, the American branch of the International Law Association, the International Education Committee of the American Bar Association, the International Association of Penal Law, the Inamori International Center for Ethics and Excellence, and the Public International Law and Policy Group. Now, we have much more to do, or we have many more ambitions here at the Cox Center. As you might have seen if you've looked at the Case Global brochure and at the back of it, we are in the midst of a fundraising campaign to honor the legacy of Henry King. As many would know, he passed away last year after teaching at Case and directing our Canada-U.S. Law Institute for 30 years. Henry had been a Nuremberg prosecutor and honorary general counsel of Canada to Northeast Ohio, among other other important positions. He was an institution builder, and the purpose of the campaign is to ensure that the institutions to which he dedicated himself will endure even after his loss, those being the Canada-U.S. Law Conference, the Niagara Moot Court Competition, and the War Crimes Research Office. And we hope with your help they'll continue to thrive. If you can help us with this endeavor, we'd be very grateful to you. Now, as a final point, it should be obvious to everybody in the room, but an event like this doesn't occur unless you have an inspiration and a leader to make it happen. And we happen to have that here. His name is Michael Scharf, and it's my pleasure to turn the podium back to him. Michael.
Well, the topic of our conference today, Lawfare, is literally ripped from the headlines. The ACLU just sued the United States government over the use of unmanned drones. And just yesterday, there were press reports of a 5th drone attack in the last 7 days in Pakistan and in Afghanistan. The first trial before the Al-Qaeda military commissions of Omar Khadr, the 15-year-old who is accused of lobbing a grenade at an American soldier in Afghanistan, is scheduled to recommence next month with the beginning of the prosecution's case. And the defense assertions that the trial violates the Geneva Conventions have been declared by many as a form of lawfare. Then last week, there were reports in the press suggesting that a lawfare campaign is being waged by Palestinians in advance of the new round of the Israeli-Palestinian peace talks. The newspaper reports that the Palestinians had been launching a series of lawsuits against Israeli officials and members of the military in courts throughout Europe in order to affect the peace process. The Obama administration, in turn, has decided to switch tracks in dealing with the country of Burma, from constructive engagement to sudden support for a UN investigation of atrocities, potentially leading to international prosecutions. At the same time, the Obama administration has created a new rule of law field force in Afghanistan that's being commanded by a friend of many of ours, Mark Martins, really bringing lawfare to the forefront of that conflict. So lawfare is everywhere, and it's timely, and it's important, and most of us are thinking, what in the world is it? So today, this conference is going to answer several questions. First of all, what is lawfare? Second is lawfare a useful concept, or is it just code for things we don't like? Third, are there legitimate and illegitimate types of lawfare, and how do we distinguish between them? And finally, as Bob just mentioned, if our enemies are using lawfare as a weapon of war against us, how should we be responding? By employing our own lawfare or otherwise? So we're going to be learning a lot in the next couple of hours. This is the first academic conference to tackle this issue. It's being webcast around the world. There'll probably be several thousand people listening in on this. In addition to the 120 of you in this room, there's another 120 upstairs watching from our overflow room. And tomorrow's experts report, as well as the conference articles, will all be published in a special journal of our International Law Journal. Out in January, and because of the generosity of the Wolf Family Foundation, those will be made available to over 1,500 experts and government officials and people around the world who are going to be wrestling with this question of lawfare. So today, the wrestling match begins, and before we start with our first panel, I would like to introduce Michael Kelly, who is the president of one of our co-sponsoring organizations, who use this occasion also as their annual meeting. And they begin every year with the presentation of 2 special awards. I turn the program over to Mike.
Thanks, Michael. L'Association Internationale de Droit Pénal, and that's the extent of my French, is an organization of penal lawyers, scholars, and judges founded in 1924 in Paris. It's still based in Paris, and it has consultative status with the United Nations. It publishes the Review, which contains updates in the field, articles by members, hosts annual meetings in Paris, and organizes congresses every 5 years, the most recent of which was in Istanbul. The U.S. National Chapter, which was founded by Sharif Basiouni, whom you all know, several years ago, actively participates in the life of this organization. And one of the things that we do every year is recognize the outstanding book of the year and the outstanding article of the year published by our members. And it's my pleasure to present the Outstanding Book of the Year award for 2010 to Bill Shabas for his book, The International Criminal Court, A Commentary on the Rome Statute. Bill? I don't think you're required to speak. Next, our Outstanding Article of the Year award for scholarly contribution to the field goes to Layla Nadia Sadat for her article, The Nuremberg Paradox. This article appears in volume 38 of the American Journal of Comparative Law. Congratulations, Layla.
Thank you, and I won't speak.
We co-sponsor symposia like this each year and codification efforts for international criminal law. If you are interested in becoming active in our organization, I'll pass around a sheet where you can put your email down and I'll contact you. Thank you, Michael.
And now the show is about to begin. Let me tell you that in order to keep this lively for those of you in the audience, so you don't start to nod off if you don't have a lot of coffee during the day, we have a number of different formats. The program is going to start with 2 speeches that will just describe the history of the term and what its meaning has evolved over the years of lawfare. Then after that, we are going to have several panels. Oh no, then we have a debate, and the debate is going to be like a presidential debate, 2 on each side. There are going to be rebuttals. It's going to be moderated by one of our famous radio personalities from town, Dan Waltrip, and he will ask follow-up questions like they do in presidential debates. That ought to get us going. Then there are 2 panels in a regular traditional format where the speakers will speak, followed by questions from the audience. So that's where you all get to get involved. Ask as many questions as you want. We'll try to keep enough time so there will be plenty of time for that. Following that, at the end of the day, there's going to be a roundtable discussion, which is going to be in crossfire format. So that'll be really interesting about whether and how lawfare has been affecting the war on terrorism. So the day has many different formats, and we just begin now with a panel, no question and answer, but just telling you from 2 different perspectives of experts of semiotics, and you'll learn what semiotics means in a few minutes, of the origins and meaning of lawfare. To kick off that panel, I introduce the panelists to come up here, and the moderator, Tay Ansa, who has worked in the UN, has come to us as a visiting professor this semester from Boston, and he's been a wonderful addition to our faculty this semester, and he's going to be moderating today. Tay and the panelists.